Good day, Tando Book Club lovers. It is Selina Zigomo here hosting you, pre-recorded this time, but it's still going to be a great conversation. And today on the show, I have Ms. Emelda Vhiriri-Mahachi, and she's going to be talking to us about her books. And as is our custom, we start every book club with a quote from a famous African. And today's quote is from Wangari Maathai, and her quote is this: "Disempowerment, whether defined in terms of lack of self-confidence, apathy, fear, or an inability to take charge of one's own life, is perhaps the most unrecognized problem in Africa today." And I chose this quote especially because of the book we'll be discussing and the author will be discussing in the work that she does. So welcome, Emelda. How are you?
Thank you so much, Selina. I'm good. I'm great. Hello, everybody. And thank you for having me on this book club. I'm excited.
Okay, so those of you who are watching as this premieres, please don't forget to put in the comments where you're watching from. And if you have any questions for Emelda, please shoot. We will make sure that we respond to those comments, even if it's after the fact. So definitely let us know what you're thinking, any questions you have, and where you're watching from. So that's to our viewers tuning in from Facebook and YouTube. So a little bit about our guest today. Emelda Vhiriri-Mahachi is an accomplished transformational speaker who seeks to cultivate lives one person at a time. Founder of Invaluable Women Exhale Community, a safe space for women to refresh, refuel, recharge, and exhale. The founding director of Cultivate Africa and chairperson of the Young Women's Forum under Women's Coalition of Zimbabwe. She is also the National Youth Gender Activist, Young Woman for Generation Equality Forum, UN Women led. She is a co-chair of the Southern African Youth Forum Zimbabwe, an alumni of the Barack Obama-founded Young African Leaders Initiative, YALI, where she did a course in civic leadership. She runs the Pull As I Rise mentorship classes for young girls and women, and is also the brains behind the Invaluable Woman Conference. In 2018, she received an award for being among the 10 outstanding young persons in Zimbabwe. In 2020, she was also recognized as one of the 50 under 30 emerging leaders. She also has authored 2 motivational books, From One Invaluable Woman to Another and Beauty for My Ashes. She believes that when you don't have a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. She is the co-director of the Ricky Kane Private Limited and Maltat Groceries. Emelda Vhiriri-Mahachi is an accomplished transformational speaker who seeks to let other women and young people realize their potential. She is a pastor and a worshiper. And just recently, she was also profiled in the Go-Getter book, The Founding 100. So welcome, Emelda. So Emelda, with all of these chairs you're sitting on, when do you get a break?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. I think I just make the time for different things, really. It's managing myself in the time that I have. So it's not easy, but I've managed well because I make time. I schedule my days and I make sure, nothing suffers. So if I'm putting on the wifey hat, I make sure, I'm putting 100% there. If I'm putting on, different hats in different spaces, that's just how I've managed to do it.
Well done. You're truly an inspiration, and you're truly living the walk that you described in your first book, From One Invaluable Woman to Another, which we'll get into in just a little bit. So you've written 2 books. You're still under 30. How did you do it? How did you start writing, and what prompted you to write these books?
Okay, so I'd say, if you were to ask me when I was younger, are you ever going to write a book? I would have told you, I don't know. I wasn't so sure because I didn't know the process. I thought it was complex. But at some point in 2016, I found myself in a place where I was questioning self-worth. I was questioning, my identity because of things that had happened in those years. So I got into a space where, as a believer, I'm a believer by conviction. And as I was on my own personal journey of getting to know who I am, what the word says about me, I got a revelation on different things. So the book the first, I think, 2 or 3 chapters are in form of questions, because it was mainly, the Holy Spirit was asking me to say, through whose eyes do you see yourself? Because I was now comparing myself to people and thinking, okay, am I not beautiful enough? Is it because I'm not this, I'm not that? So the question came, through whose eyes? And I was like, okay, all right. So being taken through that, and just even relating with Snow White's story of Mira Mira on the wall, who's the fairest of them all, I then got to claim what I use now, even when I'm mentoring young girls, to say, instead of asking the mirror, you tell the mirror, I am the fairest of them all. So mirror, mirror on the wall, I am the fairest of them all. So I was being asked those questions, through whose eyes, who completes you? And then also being just, taken through a process of saying, you've got to remove the mask, remove the facade, start to walk in true acceptance, and just saying, this is me. This is Mel, flaws and all, with all the hats, the good and the bad. This is me. So it was really a journey of rediscovery, and being redefined. That's how the first book came to be. And yeah, that was mainly because of experience, something that happened, some of the things that happened, losing staff, people, and it just got me to a place where I was asking myself, who am I really? And yeah, so that led to, from one invaluable woman to another. Initially, it was the invaluable female I am. So that was what I was writing as I was going. So what I usually do is, when I'm done writing, I give a couple of people, a couple of friends, family, and I say, please go through the book. As normally the target group, right? So I'll tell them, please give me honest opinions, reflections, so that I can make this thing better. So on one of the reviews, one of my friends who's based in Ethiopia, she's the one, now she got married to Zambia, so she's now based in Zambia. So she's the one who did the editing for the first book. But she was saying to me, okay, Mel, you are the invaluable woman, but if you're going to be writing to other women, how about you make it relational and say, I'm an invaluable woman, but I'm writing to you too. So from one invaluable woman to another, this is my offering. I know at first I struggled, because I was saying, this is the title, when you're writing a book, you're like, this is what I want. So I eventually realized, no, it actually does make a lot of sense. And so when it became more relational, a lot of people started saying, oh, okay, so I am invaluable too, and then the community then grew from that. So that was my journey for the first book in short. And I think the second one as well was experiences, my grief journey. And the last trigger was last year when I lost my dad, which is when I then wrote the second book. So the beauty for my ashes, rising like a phoenix from the ashes of grief. I was in a deep valley, like down, 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 down there. And as I was in that space, I began to research a bit about what it is I was experiencing. And as I just went through that, even with my faith again, the Holy Spirit was just taking me through some things and doing that work on the inside to say, you've got to go bare, be vulnerable, even in that space of feeling the grief, etc., etc. So yeah, experiences coupled with researches, because I have a background in psychology, so you find a lot of psychology things in there, and of course the biblical aspect as well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the from one invaluable woman to another, which is the one I've read, is definitely yeah, very interesting read. There were things that I was like, yeah, I think I know this, and then there were other things I was like, yeah, that's good. And we'll get into that shortly. So for those of you who are watching, if you're looking for this book, From One Invaluable Woman to Another, this is what the cover looks like. We've also posted it on our Facebook page and our Instagram page. You can also get it on Amazon, Kindle and paperback, for those of you who are outside of Harare. And we will post in the comments when we air this, where you can get this in Harare. And then Emelda, can you tell us where we can get a copy of Beauty for Ashes, and where we can get hard copies of From One Invaluable Woman to Another?
Okay, so Beauty for My Ashes is still to go on Amazon, but you'll find the copies in a bookstore here in Harare. For now, it's just Harare. I'm hoping to be able to spread across all provinces. But you'll find it at Rio's bookstore at Eastgate. You'll find copies there. And usually I also do deliveries in the CBD if people would like to order, so they can reach us. I also have a team that I work with, so they can text us. Do you want me to say the number now, or we can type it?
Yeah, we can type it. We'll definitely put it in the comments
Sure.
when we air this. Yeah, so because we've got those details. So definitely get your copy of this, get your hands on this, spend some time with it. It's a forgiving read, but it is definitely, there are parts that will make you smile and a few quips that will make you laugh out loud, but it's the real stuff, it's the real business. So since you've published the two books in quite a short amount of time between each other, what has the impact been? How have they been received? What has surprised you about how they've been received? And what's been very rewarding about how they've been received?
Okay, so I think because I'm somebody who focuses on quality, I really love the feedback that comes from individuals. I do have to focus on getting the book everywhere. But for now, I'm very fulfilled with the feedback that has come so far, especially for the first book. You found that women came for counseling, for mentorship, some just to have a shoulder to lean on or to cry on. And for me, that has been really, really rewarding. And just seeing that there's that little bit of impact that has happened in somebody's life when they read. Somebody was sharing with me how there's a chapter where we talk about the gold effect, where I was saying you've got to be a woman of excellence. Whatever it is that you do, no compromise. Just do it. Like if you're training one person, train like you're training 1,000. Don't compromise the value because you're saying there are few people here. So somebody was telling me that they applied that principle and people began to appreciate them more, even in their workspace. So there's a quote which I say in the book to say, get to a point where people dread your absence and appreciate your presence. So they don't want you gone. They want Selina to always be in the room. So you find people who then say, oh, I share my personal stories in there. I talked about how I battled at some point with my self-esteem when I was young, because someone passed a comment and said, she looks like a giant. I was 13, got into class, and somebody just said, oh my goodness, she's gigantic. And I was like, that's so, that's an exaggeration, But I didn't understand the impact of those words because I just went on a downhill. I started dressing like a tomboy because I felt like, okay, if people start looking at me because of something, then I would have achieved, at least, people are like, oh my goodness, she dresses like that, or, oh wow, I love your sneakers. So it then had to take deep revelation at some point to say, no, I'm perfect as I am, and getting people then saying they had similar experiences in school where somebody gave them a nickname or people would just mock them for different things, but they also then got to realize I've got to look at myself through the eyes of he who created me. And if he says I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, then that's who I am. And if he says I'm the apple of his eye, I mean, hey, and if he could actually go to the extent of dying for me, I am worth something. I'm priceless. I'm invaluable. So I get so much feedback, and just sitting. I do a lot of sessions where I make time. I keep repeating that I make the time just to sit with a sister who's going through grief. I'm more for women, not because I hate men, but I relate more with sisters. I find it easy. It's effortless for me. So I can assist men if I have to, but my specific heart is for women. So you find that I refer to sisters a lot, not because I cannot deal with men, but I target women and I love sisters. So I will sit down, have coffee with the sister, and just want them to go from one stage of their grieving to another, just telling them that it's okay to break down, to be vulnerable, to admit that I can't function, I can't walk, I can't, and then getting them to a point where they realize that there is more that they can still live for. And the person that went will still love that they moved on. So I really love that kind of interaction and feedback that has come from the book. So I think the impact has been there. Maybe if we talk about numbers, it might not be too much, but in terms of the quality, I'd say it's just been so rewarding and so fulfilling. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that sounds about right. I mean, you wrote the book on what's invaluable, and I think people are more invaluable. Names are more invaluable than numbers. So yeah, well done to you, and that you're bringing healing through that process. So just to now start to get into the invaluable woman, you've already answered my first question, which is why focus on women. I see that you have a heart for women, but the book is I think about 12 chapters. They're very forgiving. At the end of each chapter, there's a letter that the reader is instructed to read to themselves looking in the mirror. So I tried it because I'm compliant like that. And I found it to be very interesting hearing myself say the words out aloud, because it kind of takes, I think, the reader from the place of just consuming to making a commitment to follow through in action, because you do talk a bit about action in the book. So there are 12 chapters or 12 nuggets, and you do include a lot of scripture and scriptural examples in terms of women whom you are using to illustrate some of the principles you're talking about. But there is, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of psychology in the book as well, which comes from your background and your passion in the field. And so it will be, we don't have time to get into all of the 12 nuggets, but I did find, for instance, the chapter where you speak to us about wholeness, about being not a half, but a whole, and how you completed or gave us a different aspect of that message using the psychological aspect of dependency. It's actually chapter 2, and it's the chapter on who completes you. And one of the scriptures or the women you used to illustrate this was a Proverbs 31 woman. And I have never made that connection before, because in my mind, she never came across as somebody that was whole. But when you wrote about it in that chapter, I was like, oh my gosh, she is whole, because her life is so full. From morning to evening, she's got activity, she's got purpose, she's got fulfillment. She's directing things. And this is actually the thing that makes her attractive to her husband. This is actually the thing that, makes people praise her. This is actually the thing that makes people, praise her. And I found that very, very interesting, because you juxtapose it with the psychological idea of dependency, and that phenomenon in our society and culture today, the issues or factors of male support, and that dependency leads to control. Tell me a little bit about that journey and why that was so important for you to write about that in the current season that we're in.
Okay. So I was just picturing, as I was writing this, you know how we always just see those neck chains that are a half and a half, and I would always say, someday I would love to have that, and I'm going to give my better half, So as I was writing this, I then realized a lot of the times we get into relationships and we're expecting somebody to fill in the 50. So we come in and we say, I'm half, and I need somebody to fulfill me or fill the gap. And many times we are frustrated and disappointed because you're putting so much expectation on a human being who also has his own flaws. So we've got to then come to a point where you say, because I was saying in the first paragraph, I laugh sometimes when I read this, because I always ask myself, did you write that? Yeah, so it doesn't say that a half man and a half woman will come together. Even in scripture, it says a man and a woman. So that's a whole person. That's a man. That's a woman. So in the season that we are, as you were saying, why would it be important to talk about this? I relate a lot with young women, and you find that sometimes they get into relationships where they're abused.
Yeah.
It can be physically, it can be psychologically, mentally, financially, because they are so dependent on this man. So it's getting to a point where you say to yourself, I have something to offer.
Yeah.
First, I'm invaluable. You can't put a price tag on me. And then I'm whole, in the sense that if the person is a believer, I'll keep going back to that, because I know there are people from different religions and we don't undermine that. But if you are a believer, you get to a point where you relate and you say, it's Christ who completes me. So even as I come into a relationship, I have something to offer. It might not be $1 million, but I've got to have something. I've got to work for myself to a point where I can cater for my needs before someone offers to cater for them. Yeah. So you find with even girls in tertiary institutions, and we have a problem with that in Zimbabwe, where parents will pay their school fees and they send the child to school. They don't have res money, they don't have accommodation, they don't have food. So it's that thing of, parents, they don't want you to get into the situations, but they don't have. So they can only pay the fees. So they get to a point where somebody comes, parks their car outside campus and says, hey, I give you something, you give me something. And of course, the other friend has their nice Brazilian and their nice this, and they feel like, I also need that. So they get to a point where they'll do whatever they're told to do because they need the money at that point. So for me, it's then telling them, like you said with the Proverbs 31 woman, she works, she brings food from afar. She is the businesswoman. She buys the land. A lot of times we just think, oh, Proverbs 31 woman is modest. She's a stay-at-home mom. But it actually talks about her being a provider in some sense. Like she works so hard. So getting to a point where sisters catch this, to say it's okay to get somebody who takes care of your needs. If he's there and he loves on you genuinely and all, no problem. But if you can get to a point where you can do something, make $1 out of 15 cents, and then you buy yourself, that nice shoe that you really want. It's so fulfilling. And if somebody tells you do this, or I don't give you $20, you're just like, man, I do have the 20. You don't then get into vulnerable positions because you don't have. So for me, it's that understanding to say, I can be me. I don't have to lose myself because I am whole. And even with women in relationships or in marriages where I can go and eat by myself. I can go and have lunch by myself. I can let my better whole go out if he needs to and just get some fresh air, because I don't depend on him for my fun or my joy or my peace, you see? But the issue now is, because if somebody is your entire everything, you will not let them go and have, watch soccer or whatever it is that they want to, because you feel like, I have to be with them. I am you're my person, I'm your person, type of thing. So that's something I think really echoes, when we talk about this. And even with the COVID-19 lockdown issue, I know some people got to a point where it really, really hit them because they were individuals who depended on other people. They depended on them for their happiness and their joy. So when you then got into a space where it's just you, or you are in the same house with other people, but it's just you in some way, people struggle because you don't know how to relate with self. You don't know how to look self in the eyes and tell self that you are amazing, you're beautiful, you can sit here and just enjoy yourself. Some people are are afraid of that. And I think I spoke about isolophobia,
Yeah.
which is a type of a phobia, monophobia, which is also known as isolophobia. Some people have that or are like that, where they fear being alone. And you find that they always have to be with other people, no matter how toxic they are. And you find sometimes you're drained, the negative energy pushes you to become someone you're not, just because you are afraid of being alone. So it's very important to get to a point where you say, I'm complete. I don't need another human to be happy. I can be happy with someone, but I don't depend on them for my happiness or for my fulfillment in different things. So yeah,
that's very powerful, and you really unpacked that chapter very well, including highlighting the psychological aspect of phobias, the different levels of severity in terms of this issue, and also unpacked it holistically, because you can easily begin to think that we're pointing the finger at kept women, but you also speak to women in a marriage, you also speak to women in relationships, and bring the issue of control versus control using material and financial support from the male side, but also control in terms of controlling a man's support. Time and what he does with his time in a relationship. So it was very interesting to me, that issue of being whole, and the phrase that you coined. It's time for us to stop saying better half and start saying better whole. We must work to be whole, and we must be looking for someone who is whole. So that was very, very interesting for me. The other chapter, or the other theme that I found very, very interesting, and this for me, I think hit home for me personally, was the chapter where you spoke about the past. It was just very interesting to move from heuristics. So that's chapter 6. And I found that very, very interesting and very, very powerful. And in that you use 3 women from the Bible whom you illustrate different sorts of bondages to the past with. So you've got Ruth, and you juxtapose her versus her sister-in-law Orpah. They're now, Naomi's like, everything's done, it's time to leave. And Ruth is like, no, I'm gonna go. And I don't know what's ahead, but I'm done. Like, I'm not looking back, I'm looking forward. I found that very, very interesting, that idea of breaking with the past. Then you had Rahab, and I had never considered the issue of selflessness as also a way of breaking with the past, because she negotiated her transit into the promised land for herself and her family. And considering the profession she had, you brought a very interesting insight that they might have even been critical of her, looked down upon her. There might have even been an issue of betrayal or abandonment, but she was selfless. She looked beyond the past hurts. And I think sometimes as women, that's what keeps us in the past, or keeps us familiar. The past is holding back. And then Esther was the other woman that you spoke about. And you then also spoke to us about the issue of sunk cost. Sometimes we don't want to move from the past because of the principle of sunk cost. We've invested so much and we're like, no, I can't stay. Meanwhile, the actual pain or journey of making the change and moving forward, will actually cost us less in the long run. So I found that very, very interesting, moving from heuristics and in particular using our familiarity with the past and breaking it down in so many different ways. I wanted to just find out from you, what were you thinking when you were putting together that chapter? What were you thinking when you were putting together that chapter? And how would you encourage us to move on from the past of COVID that we've been through in 2020? We've now had the pandemic for 2 years. How would we apply this principle to ourselves?
Okay, so maybe for somebody who might think, okay, what are heuristics, right? So heuristics are mental shortcuts that people take when they make decisions, or what they use to make decisions. And there are different types of them, the familiarity, heuristic, and all of that. So for us, what we do is when we're in a situation, you use what you've known. That's the reflex to say, I react like this because I've reacted like that in the past. So those are heuristics. And as I was writing this, I was just thinking of how a lot of us have things that have happened in the past, right? And if you don't get to a point where you say, okay, I own my story as it is, but I'm going to move beyond the limitations set by the past, you will just live a life that it might be fulfilling in a way, but you might not, you know, um, what can I say, perform at that maximum level, the maximum potential that God created you to perform at. So I have also a background where, you know, the short of it is I grew up in a broken family. My parents divorced when I was really young. I think I was 6 at the time. And then I lost my mom when I was really young as well. So I lost her at 12. And we practically then stayed by ourselves with my siblings, my older siblings raising us. And we did have help from, you know, my aunt, who is like my mom now, and different people who came around us. But initially it was just us. So imagine staying in a home with young people. I mean, it's just us. You can end up doing certain things or choosing a particular life because no one really is going to sit you down and say, don't do this, because they're also going on with their lives. Not to say they would want you to make bad decisions, but it's like, if I do make a bad decision, no one is really watching, type of thing, you understand? So I had to make a decision and a choice to say, I want to go to a certain point where Mel is recognized as somebody who impacts lives. I want to transform lives. I want to be wealthy so that I can help other people, because I love to give. I'm somebody who, if somebody calls me and says, Mel, I'm hungry, I don't want to be like, let's pray, Father, provide for her. I want to say, okay, let me bring you a food hamper, or let me give you some money so that you get food. I want to practically help. So those are some of the things that I was just, you know, looking at and saying, my past is not going to define me, broken home or not, you know, growing up without the support from my dad. I didn't really get much of a relationship with my dad growing up, but I really love how we had the amazing time. I got to know him more in my 20s, you know, when I got to a point where I said, I'm going to forgive this man. You know, I sat him down, spoke about it, and I said, Dad, I forgive you. I forgive you for not being there. I forgive you for this, for that. I took him through it, and he was looking at me like, oh, okay. You know, but that conversation helped to break whatever, you know, was there. I released him. We had an amazing friendship. I won't even say it was more of father and daughter, but we had a friendship that even when he then, you know, transitioned to glory last year and he passed away, I'm so grateful to God that I had time with him that I can actually tell my kids about, to say, your grandfather was funny. He was this, he was that, because I chose to forgive. And there may be someone out there who's debating. You know, it really helps you to get closure. You know how people say closure, even if the person then goes. You know, I'm in a space where I was like, I would have loved to have him more, but I'm grateful that I had released him before he went. So yes, the story is long, but as I was writing, it was that realization to say, we all have choices. You can choose to take yourself to the next level, or you can choose to be labeled by people. You know, with Rahab, people just knew her as the prostitute. But in Hebrews, it then says, by faith, the harlot Rahab did not perish with those who did not believe, right? When she had received the spies with peace. She would have just said to the spies, hey, I'm known as the prostitute in this land. You know, there's nothing I can offer you, whatever it is. And she would have just dismissed them. But she said, hey, even with what people say, I believe in the God that you believe in. And I believe that he's going to, you know, change things around, etc., etc. And she managed to save her whole family. So it's that thing for us to say, okay, COVID came. COVID came and we knew a certain type of life. But at the end or at the other side of our fear of risk taking, there could be something greater. So we've got to innovate, we've got to change, we've got to have new ways of doing. If it's business, let's do new things in business. And you might actually see that you're going to grow even more than you used to think. So it's saying, okay, this is how we used to do it. I used to take my kids to, because I know a lot of people are homeschooling now. I used to take my kids to a physical school, but now I'm adapting to homeschooling. But even with homeschooling, they will achieve greatness. They're gonna, so it's changing our mindset to say we can't really change much of what's going on around us, but how can we be creative? How can we be innovative even in this space? How can we, make a difference with what's on the inside? COVID can change a lot in the environment, but it can't change you, right? Your gifts are there, your skills are there, your wisdom is there. So just use that as you are redefining and saying, okay, this is a new way of doing things that I'm going to do. So it's really about saying, I'm not going to be afraid, because fear of the unknown usually holds us back. And we're thinking, should I jump in? Should I change course? Should I apply for a new job? Should I, because you're thinking, what if it's a no? What if? But try. What if it goes the better way? What if it goes like the 360 of the good, not the bad? So yes, I think that would be my motivation to us to say, hey, it might not be what we knew, and we're not going to go back to exactly how it was, but let's look at it as a learning curve, take what we can from what we've learned and build on that and become better, become stronger. And I'm sure we're going to be happier as well.
Yeah, definitely. How can we not after such rousing inspiration? For those of you who are watching, definitely do get yourself a copy of From One Invaluable Woman to Another. We only discussed 2 of the 12 themes that are in the book. And as you can see, we could spend all day talking about it and not exhaust all of the goodness and richness that is in this book. So definitely grab yourselves a copy. We're coming towards the end of our interview, and before we do our reading, I just want to check. I just want to ask one last question, which we always ask on the book club, which is, what was the publishing process like for you, and how would you encourage other people looking to do the same?
Okay. It wasn't complicated, like I said, as I thought. So I think from the first one was like, let's just do as we do and go. Like, I didn't really have much of mentors or people who were helping me along the journey. But with the second one, I joined what's known as the Writers Clinic. And in that space, there's so many nuggets that are posted, and so many presentations that happen daily, and that really sharpened me, even in terms of rewriting. I never used to think I had to rewrite my book. Like, I just thought, write it the first time and then give it to the editors and it goes. So I think I'll just sum it up to say, I would write the book, of course, pen it down. And for me, I love typing as I go, because it helps with shortening the time, unlike writing in the book and then translating it there. So I type as I go, and as I'm typing, it's maybe just an experience in a day, a word that somebody spoke, and it then just translates into the chapter or adds value to the chapter. So with the writing, I then engage an editor, because remember, now I've done the rewriting. So as I'm rewriting, I'm editing as well. I'm checking my grammar, and I'm just looking through it. And I've also sent out to a few people who I'm saying, okay, can you please review it with me? They're bringing in their input. And then when the final editor gets to sit on it and edit, there are a few things that need the editing. And when you're done, you've got a polished book, because you don't want those little errors that people can just look at and say, is this a whole 20-something-year-old person who wrote this book? I wasn't a child in kindergarten. So yes, so the editor, and then I engage my designers for the covers. I had different designers for both of them. The second one had more detail because I was saying I want the ashes, and then I want the rose that comes out of the ashes because it's symbolic, and then I want the phoenix that's fading, but it's like, so it's talking about how the phoenix has risen from ashes, and you can also rise from whatever it is that wanted to kill you or that really hurt you. So I explain my, oh, sorry about that. So I explain my details about what I really want and the story that this is speaking to. So the designers do that, and of course we're bouncing ideas off of each other. And then in Zim, because I did self-publishing for both books, I had to go and purchase the ISBN number, which is that barcode or that number that you get when you write your book. And it also protects your book and your title. And so I did that at the National Archives. I think it was very cheap in Bond, actually. I'm forgetting the actual price, but it's like ridiculously cheap. So after that, I then engaged my printers who did the typesetting for me, the proper layout, and also then putting everything in there to say copyright Emelda Vhiriri 2017 or 2020. And then, the process of then printing them. And the first one I did put on Amazon, but the second one is still to do that. And something that I need to work on that I think a lot of writers don't think about, the marketing part. So we usually write the book and think it's done. I've written a book, yay, we've launched it, because yes, we did launch the books, both of them, we did launch them. But then after the launch, then what? People still need to know about your book. They need to buy the book. So I'm still learning a lot about marketing to say, I need to either boost my pages and let people know there's Emelda who's in Zimbabwe. She's written these books and the books have this and this to offer. So yes, that I think in a nutshell, that has been my process and my journey to publishing the books. And awesome. I hope it does help somebody. But I'm also here if somebody needs to ask. And I have a friend who does a lot of mentorship around writing books. She's amazing with that. So somebody needs to be referred to the amazing Miss Faith. I can do that as well.
Awesome. So awesome. And we'll definitely share Emelda's social media handles. We already have in the run up to this premiere. So definitely make it a point to get in touch with her and get that support that you need. So now as we come to the end of our book club, you all know that as is our custom, we don't let the authors leave without doing a reading. And so we've asked Emelda to prepare a short reading from her book, The Invaluable Woman, and she's going to read to us now to close out today's interview. So Emelda, take it away.
Thank you, Selina. Is my microphone still clear? Okay, thank you. So we're going to read from chapter 3, from one invaluable woman to another. Bye-bye or bye-bye facade. It is amazing how the 21st century women have mastered the art of makeup. I'm aware that makeup has always been there, but the skill it requires in this day is unbelievable. Just take some time to watch some tutorials on YouTube and you will see that it is not a joke. Some women actually have PhDs in that area. As the layers are put with each correct shade of powder and concealer, it is remarkable how dark spots are covered and beauty is revealed. Women use makeup for several reasons. While some try to cover flaws, others just accentuate their beauty. Of course, it often gets more complicated than that. It is easy to get trapped in that mask, as makeup could cover more than just physical blemishes. There is a principle known as role modeling coined by Albert Bandura, a famous social psychologist. And the theory suggests that growing up, young girls are bound to imitate their mothers or those that they look up to. It could spill into adulthood as well when someone tries so much to be like popular celebrities. The bad thing about imitating someone down to how they dress, act, and talk is that too quickly it becomes a part of who you are. Before you know it, it will have engulfed all of you to the point that you forget who you really are. I wonder how many things the world has been deprived of because of women who failed to embrace their uniqueness and give us what they were created to offer. Many people speak so highly of the late Maya Angelou, an impeccable woman who serenaded the world with her poetry. Some will speak highly of Whitney Houston, an amazing vocalist who gave her best to the world that even now her music can still give you goosebumps. The list is endless of women who have made a mark. My concern now is that if some women settle for shadowing someone else's footsteps, who will ever get to experience the unique gifts that they have? I am baffled by the thought that someone so uniquely, fearfully, and wonderfully made would want to be like someone else. It's mind-boggling. Let us look at the chapter that speaks of our uniqueness. Psalm 139, verse 13 to 16. For you formed my inward parts, you covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret, and skillfully wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Your eyes saw my substance being yet unformed, and in your book they were all written, the days fashioned for me, when as yet there were none of them. For some, you might say that it is best for that mask to stay on just because what lies underneath is too ugly to be. Maybe the scars are too deep and the concealers are what have given you the permission to hold your head up high. You cannot bear the thought of anyone getting a sneak preview into the person you've become, the cards that transformed you from who you were born to be. You need to go back to the aspect of seeing yourself through Christ's eyes in the first chapter. Now, wearing a facade is so much work that it needs a salary allocation. I mean, constantly thinking about who to be, filtering the kind of person you think people will admire, or the type of woman a particular date of yours would want to keep. It's not easy. I watched an interesting movie recently where a lady spent so much time studying the lives of her potential dates so that she would have relevant things to talk about, that she barely focused on what she liked. Some ladies cannot make simple decisions like where to dine, what to order, because they're afraid to be judged for who they are. But the beauty of dropping the facade is that you get to enjoy what you really like, and you allow the next person to experience it. You do not have to constantly worry about what you say or how you pronounce it. You are just yourself. Those who know me will tell you that I enjoy my staple food, salsa, especially with meat. Oh, I love meat and it's no secret. Sometimes I've gotten with the usual, how can a lady like you like salsa? Kind of question. But hey, my appetites and preferences are not to be swayed with trends that come and go. That is who I am, and I will not pretend to not like it because a potential date is in the room. But before you also judge me, there are other foods that I fancy. I love chicken schnitzel, and I love Chinese food. My mouth is watery already. I think this is my cue to stop talking about food. Loving yourself is allowing yourself to embrace the unique you that God created and those little things that shape who you are and what you like. Dare to be different and dare to walk with your head held high, even as that southern loving woman. Can I get an amen? Make a decision today to stop being a people pleaser and allow yourself to dazzle in that uniqueness and to be unapologetic about who you really are. Now, there's a letter at the end of the chapter. And I'm not going to read like the whole chapter 3, but that's just a snippet. So the letter says, dear, so you can put dear Mel if you're Emelda, dear Selina, dear Tatinda, dear Precious, dear so-and-so. You do not need that mask that was suffocating you all this while. Breathe as you release the muffled you, the incredible woman who has been dying to be introduced to the world. With boldness and chutzpah, you will hold that head up high as you go for what you've always wanted. From now on, you don't waste time
keeping up a facade. Begin to walk in your own shoes and say goodbye to the blisters that came with wearing the wrong size shoe while trying to be someone else. And a toast to the world for receiving the best of you after being deprived for so long. No more mask, no more facade. Yours, the invaluable woman.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's definitely an amazing message to end on, from one invaluable woman to another. Thank you for helping us all realize that we all have something invaluable in us. And it's worth celebrating and discovering through many of the tools and revelations you share in this book. So there you have it, Tando Channel Book Club lovers. That's this week's show. Thank you for joining us, and please do get a copy of the book. When you do, please go on to Good Reviews and give it a review, and let us know what you're thinking in the comments below on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you, Emelda, and that's it from us this week.
Thank you.